The haunting of Rikers Island, inside New York's infamous jail. They had 7 minutes to stop it. No one believed the warning. The emergency phone rang inside the control room, sharp and sudden, cutting through the low hum of monitors and fluorescent lights. For a moment, no one moved. Calls like that came in all the time at Rikers Island: misfires, false alarms, inmates pressing buttons for attention. This one felt different. Stay with this story. What happens next almost didn't get stopped. At 2:41 a.m., the jail was supposed to be asleep. Tier lights dimmed. Doors sealed. Movement restricted to authorized staff only. On paper, everything was stable. Officer Marcus Levin, a 12-year veteran assigned to Central Operations, answered the call. The voice on the other end was tight, controlled, but rushed. "There's a problem with the count," the officer said. "I think the records are wrong." Levin glanced at the digital dashboard in front of him. Every housing unit showed green. No alerts. No discrepancies. "Which unit?" Levin asked. The pause. "That's the problem," the voice said. "I don't know." Rikers Island ran on numbers. Names mattered less than IDs. Beds were tracked. Movements logged. Meals delivered based on rosters generated by the system hours earlier. If the numbers were right, the jail functioned. If they weren't, nothing did. Levin pulled up the live inmate management screen. Thousands of entries scrolled past: intake dates, housing assignments, court statuses. He typed in the ID number the officer gave him. The system hesitated, then returned a blank field. No name. No photo. Status: active. Levin tried again. Same result. "That ID doesn't exist," he said. "It does," the officer replied. "He's standing in front of me." Levin muted the line and leaned closer to the screen. Database errors happened, but they usually left a trail: corrupted entries, partial records, warning flags. This was different. The system insisted the inmate was real while offering no proof of who he was. Levin checked the physical count logs submitted earlier that night. The numbers matched. Every bed accounted for. 2 perfectly. He unmuted the phone. "Where exactly are you?" "Upper housing, North Corridor," the officer said. "Cell door says one name. Wristband says another. System says neither." Levin felt a chill crawl up his spine. 3 sources were never supposed to disagree. He pulled camera feeds from the corridor. The image showed the inmate standing calmly near his cell, hands at his sides, posture relaxed. No agitation. No signs of distress. Just waiting. Levin zoomed in on the wristband. The name was partially obscured by wear, but the number was clear. The same number that didn't exist. "How long has he been here?" Levin asked. Another pause. "I can't tell," the officer said. "There's no intake time listed." That was impossible. Everyone who entered Rikers left a timestamp. Intake was logged down to the minute. Court transport, medical holds, housing transfers. Nothing moved without a record. Except this inmate. Levin flagged the issue and sent a message to his supervisor. The response came back quickly. "Likely data sync delay. Log and continue. Handle at shift change." Levin stared at the screen. A delay didn't explain a missing identity. It didn't explain conflicting physical and digital records. And it didn't explain why the inmate himself looked unsurprised. Levin watched the camera feed again. The inmate glanced up, straight into the lens, then away. No panic. No confusion. As if he already knew something was wrong. At 2:47 a.m., another call came in. Different unit. Same problem. An inmate whose paperwork didn't match his presence. A name on the door that didn't align with the system. A wristband tied to an ID number that returned nothing. 2 cases could be coincidence. 3 were a pattern. Levin overrode protocol and began a manual cross-check. Paper logs against digital records. Housing rosters against camera counts. The more he compared, the worse it became. Some inmates appeared twice in the system. Others appeared not at all. A few were listed as housed in cells that were visibly empty. The numbers still balanced. The reality did not. By 2:53 a.m., Levin requested a temporary movement hold. The supervisor hesitated. Lockdowns required justification, and the system showed no active threat. "There's no incident," the supervisor said. "No alarms. No missing inmates." "That's the issue," Levin replied. "I think there are inmates we don't know about." Silence on the line. "Explain." Levin pulled up a split screen, one camera feed, one database entry. He highlighted the empty fields. "This person exists in the building," Levin said, "but not in the system. And I don't know how many more there are." Permission came seconds before the 7-minute mark passed. Movement halted. Doors locked. Counts reinitiated manually. Officers began physically verifying names and faces against paper rosters. That's when the first disappearance was noticed. A cell listed as occupied was empty. The bed was made. The floor untouched. The camera showed no exit. No one could say when the inmate was last seen. Levin's heart pounded as reports came in. The issue wasn't just wrong records. It was time. Logs showed inmates checked in places they hadn't been yet. Movement timestamps overlapped. Entire hours were missing from certain records. Something had been quietly breaking, possibly for weeks. And now it was impossible to tell what was real. At 3:01 a.m., Levin accessed the system audit trail. That's when he saw the update. A routine software patch installed months earlier. Approved. Signed off. No errors reported. But buried in the change log was a warning that no one had flagged. Identity reconciliation incomplete. Levin understood immediately. The system had been trying to fix itself. And failing. In a place built on control, the foundation had cracked without anyone noticing. Not through force. Not through chaos. Through paperwork. Through silence. Through trust in a system that no longer reflected reality. As supervisors gathered and the jail shifted into emergency review mode, Levin stared at the blank record on his screen, knowing the worst truth had already surfaced. If Rikers Island couldn't account for who was inside its walls, then no one could say for certain who had ever been there at all. But when they checked the logs, everything changed. By sunrise, the emergency was already being redefined. Supervisors crowded the operations room, eyes fixed on screens that still glowed green. According to the system, Rikers Island was stable again. The temporary lockdown had ended. Counts were complete. No inmate officially missing. The warning had been contained. Or so they believed. Marcus Levin hadn't slept. He sat in the same chair, watching the same dashboards, waiting for the system to contradict itself again. It didn't. That was the first mistake. Instead of treating the incident as a breach, administrators labeled it a data reconciliation anomaly. A technical issue. Something the overnight team had overreacted to. An internal memo went out before noon. No evidence of unauthorized movement. Records error resolved. Resume normal operations. Levin read it twice. Resolved how? No one had answered that question. The investigation began quietly, almost apologetically. A small IT team reviewed the database patch from months earlier. They confirmed what the audit log already suggested. The update had partially rewritten inmate identity fields to clean up redundancies. In theory, it improved efficiency. In practice, it merged records that should never have touched. Two inmates with similar biographical data could become one. One inmate transferred between units could appear in two places at once. And in rare cases, an inmate could exist physically without a digital anchor. The system didn't flag it as an error. It corrected around it. Levin tried to escalate. He requested a full physical verification of every inmate tied to a corrupted identity cluster. The request was denied. Too disruptive, a deputy warden said. We'd be shutting down the jail over a software glitch. Levin pointed to the empty cell discovered during the lockdown. There's no proof anyone was ever assigned there, the deputy replied. Not officially. That was the second mistake. At Rikers, what wasn't official didn't exist. Over the next few days, subtle inconsistencies appeared. An inmate arrived at court without a transport log. Another missed a medical appointment that the system swore he attended. A meal tray returned untouched for someone marked as having eaten. Each issue, isolated, meant nothing. Together, They formed a pattern no one wanted to acknowledge. Levin began tracking it himself. He printed rosters, compared faces to names, noted small delays between physical movement and digital updates. He noticed certain inmates were always processed manually, never scanned automatically. Those inmates shared one thing in common. Their records were unstable. One afternoon, Levin reviewed footage from a housing unit that had never triggered alerts. The camera showed inmates lining up for recreation, moving in pairs as required. The count looked correct, until Levin slowed the footage. One inmate stepped out of frame. Another stepped in almost immediately. The system logged it as continuous presence. No gap, no absence. Levin felt his stomach drop. The system wasn't blind. It was smoothing reality to fit its expectations. The real cost of the mistake became clear a week later. An attorney arrived at Rikers demanding to see his client, an inmate scheduled for court that morning. Staff searched the system. The inmate was listed as released. Released when? The timestamp showed 3 days earlier. Released to where? No destination field existed. No signature. No escort log. Just a status change. Officers searched the housing unit. The inmate's cell was occupied by someone else. No personal belongings remained. No one recalled seeing him leave. Surveillance footage showed him entering the unit days earlier. After that, nothing. The system insisted he was gone. Reality offered no proof. Administrators froze. A missing inmate wasn't just an error. It was a legal catastrophe. But instead of widening the investigation, leadership narrowed it. They assumed a clerical mistake, a misfiled release, a delayed transfer that hadn't synced yet. They ordered staff not to discuss the issue. That was the third mistake. Levin watched as the jail returned to routine. Doors opened, meals delivered, court transports resumed. And somewhere inside the facility, gaps remained. Spaces where records didn't match bodies. Bodies that no longer matched records. The system kept functioning, not because it was correct, but because it refused to admit uncertainty. Late one night, Levin received a message from an officer on a different unit. We found another one. Another inmate with no intake time. Another wristband tied to a blank identity. Another calm face that didn't react when questioned. How long have you been here? The officer asked the inmate. The inmate thought for a moment. Longer than the computer says, he replied. That answer never made it into the report. The official note read, data inconsistency corrected. But Levin knew the truth now. The mistake wasn't the software update. The mistake was believing the system could replace observation. Believing records were more real than people. Believing silence meant safety. By the time the first external inquiry began, it was already too late. Evidence had shifted. Logs had overwritten themselves. And the jail could no longer reconstruct its own past. Whatever had happened inside Rikers Island wasn't loud. It didn't involve riots or alarms. It involved trust. And that trust had erased someone. As Levin prepared a final report, one he knew might end his career, he uncovered one last detail. The missing inmate's record hadn't been deleted. It had been merged into another inmate who was still very much inside the jail. 2 identities, 1 body, and no way to tell which name belonged to which past. The cost of the mistake was no longer theoretical. It was human. The call came just before dawn. Not an alarm. Not a riot signal. A quiet request from a housing unit supervisor who had stopped trusting what the system was telling him. The numbers didn't add up anymore. An inmate who was supposed to be transferred 2 days earlier was still appearing on meal delivery lists. Another, officially logged as present, had not been visually confirmed in over 48 hours. No one had triggered an emergency. Because on paper, nothing was wrong. When investigators finally stepped inside the unit, they didn't find chaos. They found order. Cells locked. Lights functioning. Logs completed on time. Too perfect. The inmate at the center of the discrepancy, identified here only as D417, had been moved through Rikers Island so many times that his status had become fragmented. Intake records said one thing. Housing logs said another. Medical notes referenced a third location entirely. Each department had followed procedure, just not the same version of it. D417 had learned the rhythm of the jail long before the system failed him. He understood that Rikers wasn't one jail, but dozens of semi-independent operations stacked on top of each other, each with its own priorities, software, and blind spots. He knew transfers were logged manually before being entered digitally, that overnight movements relied on handwritten confirmation, that once an inmate was flagged as pending, responsibility shifted, not to a person, but to a process. And processes don't notice silence. During an internal review, it became clear that D417 had not vanished. He had remained inside the jail the entire time, but not where he was supposed to be. He had been reassigned to a temporary holding area meant for short-term overflow, spaces rarely audited unless there was an incident. The assignment had been legitimate. The follow-up never happened. For days, he existed in a kind of administrative limbo. Meals arrived because the kitchen followed intake data. Security checks passed because headcounts relied on outdated rosters. Medical staff never flagged the absence because the system showed he had already been moved. Everyone assumed someone else was responsible. The truth wasn't that Rikers Island lost an inmate. It was that the jail lost track of accountability. Interviews conducted afterward revealed a deeper issue. Staff spoke openly, off the record, about how often records lagged behind reality, about how survival inside the system depended less on rules than on understanding which rules mattered at which moment. Inmates learned this quickly. They watched which doors opened without confirmation, which logs were signed without verification, which mistakes were quietly corrected instead of reported. D417 hadn't escaped. He had waited for the system to contradict itself. When he was finally relocated, formally, properly, documented, the correction was logged as a routine adjustment. No incident report, no disciplinary note, just a line edited in a database. The investigation ended without public attention. No press conference, no criminal charges, no official acknowledgement of failure, because nothing dramatic had happened. And that was the most unsettling part. Rikers Island didn't break down that week. It functioned exactly as designed, fragmented, overextended, and dependent on assumptions. The haunting truth wasn't about ghosts or legends whispered by inmates. It was about how easily a person could disappear without leaving the building. Not by force, not by violence, but by procedure. The final internal memo concluded that no immediate risk to facility operations was identified. But those who read it understood what wasn't written. If one inmate could slip between systems unnoticed, it could happen again. And next time, no one might be looking. If this story shook you, the next one will be worse.